Today, we're going to be adding a new receptacle outlet to an existing wall. I'm going to walk you through the process step by step and point out some of the common mistakes that people make on small electrical jobs like this. If you're new here, I'm John with Backyard Maine. I've been an electrician for over 40 years and I'm here to share my experience with all of you. Today, we're down here in my finished basement. I want to add a receptacle for a small chest freezer. I currently have it connected with an extension cord, but that's not safe for a permanent installation. I need a new outlet on this wall right here. So, where do we start? Well, the first thing we need to think about is the load. What's the wattage or the current draw of what we plan to connect to our new receptacle? This small freezer only draws about 1.7 amps when the compressor is running. So we can safely add this to an existing circuit, which is often going to be the case. So what options do we have? We could, of course, run a cable all the way back to the circuit panel and feed the receptacle with a new circuit. But I don't think that's necessary here. We could cut into the existing receptacle circuit cables up in the ceiling, but there's not enough slack in the wires, so we'd have to add some boxes, so I don't want to do that either. We have a light switch on the other side of the wall, which we could possibly use, but that's not our best option. Since we're talking about light switches, here are a few things to consider if you're planning on feeding a receptacle from a light switch box. The switch box will require a neutral wire for the circuit to be extended. I always run a neutral to my switch boxes. It's actually a code requirement now, but 2-wire switch loops with no neutral were common for many years. A switch loop carries power down from the light box on the white wire, and it returns power back to the light on the black wire. So if we open a switch box looking for neutral wires, we're looking for white wires that are not connected to the light switch. If there was only one white wire in this box and it was connected to the light switch, that would mean the box had no neutral, so it couldn't be used. But if our light switch box does have a neutral in it like this one does, and we can fish a wire to it, it can be used. Another thing to remember is we need to tap into the feed side of the switch, not the switch leg that goes to the light. Otherwise, our receptacle would be controlled by the switch. This can get confusing, so let me know if I should make a video dedicated to the subject. Okay, we're getting off track here. Our last option would be to get our feed from an existing receptacle circuit. We have a receptacle outlet on the other side of the wall, which is our best option. It's a 15 amp circuit that feeds a few outlets along the wall, so that should be fine for our new receptacle. Since it's a 15 amp circuit, we can fish in 14-2 cable. If it was a 20 amp circuit, we would need 12-2 cable. It's very important to match our wire gauge with our circuit size so it's protected and code compliant. Okay, we know where we're going to get our power, our wire size, and our circuit size, so now it's time to locate our box. Let's grab some tools. But before we do, quick break and thanks to AG1 for sponsoring today's video. I've been drinking AG1 every morning for over a year now. For me, it's simple. 1 scoop or pack in cold water, give it a shake, and I'm good to go. It supports my energy levels, gut health, and immune health, and it replenishes those commonly underconsumed daily micronutrients. They just came out with 3 new flavors, and I've been enjoying the berry one lately. Honestly, it makes my morning routine easy. I don't mess around with multiple supplements. I just drink AG1. What I also like is AG1 is NSF certified for sport, which means it's been tested to the highest standards for quality and safety. It's reassuring to know that they're putting that much effort into the product. If you want to try it out, go to drinkag1.com/backyardmaine or just scan the QR code on the screen. You'll get a free welcome kit when you first subscribe. It includes 5 AG1 travel packs and a bottle of vitamin D. Thanks again to AG1 for sponsoring today's video. Okay, back to our new box location. I would like to keep our new receptacle on the other side of the wall in the same stud bay as our feeder receptacle. This will make it much easier to fish in our cable. I'm going to use a stud finder to locate the studs so I don't accidentally hit one when I cut the hole for my new box. I have an old stud finder, but it's no longer working, so I picked up a new one last night. You can spend a lot of money on fancy stud finders, but I just wanted something that was simple and inexpensive. This one here was highly rated and it was only about 20 bucks. I can see I have a stud in the corner and another one here. Let's mark that out. Okay, now that we know where our studs are, we can locate our box. This stud finder worked pretty well. I'll link it and all the tools that I'm using down in the video description. Since we're installing our box to existing drywall, we'll be using an old work box. They have little ears that secure the box to the drywall, much like a toggle bolt. This is only a 14 cubic inch box, but it's large enough for one cable and one device. I made an entire video on box fill last week. I'll link that at the end of this video. All my receptacles are 18 inches to the top of the box, so we'll use that same height for our new receptacle. This is how I mark out an old work box. I make a level mark at 18 inches to top, then plumb a line down one side of the box. Now we can line up our box and mark around it. Our top and bottom lines will be on the flat surface, just above the device screw holes. That'll give us the clearance we need to get the box into the wall. Not all boxes are the same, so be careful. Cut the opening just large enough to slide the box into the wall, but not so large that the box can't grab onto the drywall securely. We'll score the face of the drywall with a knife to keep the paper from ripping. Then we'll cut out our hole with a keyhole saw. We'll go easy so we don't break out the back of the drywall. Also, be careful not to damage anything else that may be inside the wall. Now we can test fit our box to be sure we're good to go. Okay, now we need to open our feeder box, but first we need to cut the power. We'll plug in our outlet tester just to be sure we get the right circuit. Okay, the power's off so we can open up the box. Now we can fish in our new cable. This should be easy since it's in the same stud bay. I don't think I'll need my fish tape for this job. Now we'll strip our sheath off of our new cable. The code requires at least 6 inches of wire from the end of the cable sheath and at least 3 inches of free wire outside the box. We'll take off about 9 inches, which just happens to be the length of our lineman's pliers. There are several tools that we can use to strip the sheath off our cable. I'll show you 2 of them today. For this side of the cable, we'll use our Southwire Romex strippers. They have cutters for both 12 and 14-2 cable. With the cutters on the end, it allows them to reach up inside of a box. Because this is an old work box, they don't just have knockouts. They actually have cable clamps up inside the box. We'll insert our cable through the cable clamp and into the box. To meet code, we need a minimum of a 1/4 inch of sheath past the clamp. Now we'll install our box into the wall. I'll angle it to get the cable into the wall, and then we'll simply push the box into place. Then we'll tighten our clamps. We're tying into a 15 amp circuit, so I'll be using a standard 15 amp receptacle. But something worth pointing out, because we're in a finished basement and in a laundry room, current code requires both GFCI and AFCI protection in this area. My home wiring predates those requirements, but since this is new work, we'll have to come back later and replace the breaker. Now we'll wire the receptacle. I recommend using the side terminals when wiring devices. The backstabs tend to be unreliable. We'll strip about 3/4 of an inch of insulation off our wires and bend our J-hooks. Then we'll put the hooks around the screws in a clockwise orientation. And we'll tighten the screws. The code requires that device screws be torqued to the manufacturer's spec. You can use a torque screwdriver, but I've done so many, I know it by feel. Now we can install the device into the box. I like using oversized wall plates on old work boxes since they can stick out of the wall a bit and a standard plate won't always sit flush against the wall. Okay, let's wire our feeder receptacle. This time we'll use a different cable sheath stripper to slice the sheath. Then we'll cut it off with our diagonals. We'll connect our new wires to our existing pigtails. Then we'll fold our wires into the box and close everything up. Okay, now we're ready to energize the circuit. We'll test our feeder outlet again just to make sure everything's connected correctly. Okay, good. We have power here. Let's check out our new receptacle. Perfect. We're good to go here as well. This outlet tester shows that we do have power. The hot and neutral are connected to the correct terminals and our ground is connected as well. These are pretty handy little devices. Let's get rid of that old extension cord and plug the freezer into our new receptacle. Well, that didn't take very long at all. Only cost a few dollars in materials and we have a new receptacle right where we needed it. I'll link that box fill video right here for you to watch next. Or if you're interested in a home generator hookup, I'll link that video here as well. If you like this kind of content and you're not already, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm John from Backyard, Maine. I really appreciate you guys being here, and I'll see you on the next one.